Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic.
So, welcome to Celtic Ligers. I'm joined on the podcast today by Neil Richmond. I mean, it's a real get. I can't believe that I've managed to get you on.
No, you know, Neil Richmond going on every podcast these days. Tig Hickey's Celtic Ligers.
Yeah.
Does Tig even have a podcast, or is he just...
I didn't... Until he said that Neil Richmond was like, oh, he's going to be on my podcast, or the other way around, that Neil Richmond said it. I didn't even realize that Tig Hickey had a podcast.
Yeah. I know he's involved with like the shared Ireland team thing, but
really?
There was a conference over the weekend for like a United Ireland thing I think it was in the Clayton in Cork. And he was just like there on a very serious panel. And it was weird. There was one very serious question asked by someone from UCC, being like, I'll get some of it wrong, but they're essentially saying in the UK there is like a UK Muslim identity, but that doesn't exist here. And it's like, where is the place for people like that in Ireland? You know, what does it mean to be Irish and something else? And then he asked the whole panel and they just didn't ask Tig. I don't know. I think he can only do like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're segueing here, but I don't get his comedy. Like he'll set up this skit and then like half of it will be what it's meant to be, which is like, hey, isn't this like a normal conversation? And the other half will be like just directly referencing what happened between countries. And it's like, pick one or the other.
My history with him is that I saw like the two shows that he had on RTE. And then I was like, I didn't really find them funny. Yeah. But at the time I was like doing stand-up. So I thought like anybody who's kind of like... I mean, the thing that I liked about it was that at least it was like... it was not in Dublin, but also it wasn't relying on particularly lazy lad culture kind of stuff. Yeah. If I remember it being a little bit broader, you know, or kind of like, it was like silly. So I was like, all right, whatever. I guess if people like it, I don't really care.
Did you see like his one involving the UK, Nigeria and India, where it's like, give me back my shit? But he just like in his replies he just like tagged like the Nigerian government, like where the green love heart. There's someone at the office like checking the notifications for the Nigerian government.
Yeah. So that was it. And then anyway, I was at this thing and then that's where I met him, and my knowledge of him was like he's quite nice.
Yeah.
I liked him. And I also I'd seen videos of him on Facebook where he was like doing little skits with his kid. So I was like, oh, he's got a kid, you know? Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, you know, I'm kind of rooting for you. I hope your shows do all right. Yeah. And but then, you know, I think he got fucked around in the time slots, and whoever was the successor didn't have as much faith in the shows. Yeah. Because like they had 2 or 3 shows, and then they didn't. But anyway, all to say that when he started kind of like segueing into doing political stuff, I was also kind of like, oh, he's kind of got like a thing that's not the prevailing thing, you know, like I wouldn't necessarily 100% be behind it, but a lot of the time, but then what he's been doing recently has really started to grind my gears, as it were. Like the one that was where he was called out for like doing promotional stuff for like Paddy Power or one of those like bookmakers, and he's like, well, I got like, you know, to pay, you know, I got people to pay, I got people to feed, you know. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, I get it, but you were the one who chose to do this political shit. Yeah. So now they kind of have to have this consistency with what you do. And then he goes on and talks with Neil Richmond, and it's like, man, are you in this at all? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
No. Like he'll rely on like the, you know, what Dad would call shinner bots or whatever. But like, yeah, he was like, "Oh, I was taking money out of Paddy Power's pocket," and it's like, "Geez, man, like, are they happy you're saying that?" Like, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like that's still not consistent. Like the idea is that they get a return on you. You're making more for them.
Yeah, well, you're working for them.
Yeah.
Imagine going like working as like, you know, like my boss sucks, I know, but you wouldn't believe what I'm getting out of this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just about living wage, let me tell you.
Changing
you know?
Paddy Power from the inside. Like,
Yeah. That's the thing that like the whole thing with Neil Richmond as well is that like again, speaking entirely in quotes of other things, what's the one, Jamie from The Thick of It, you know? There's like a bit in it where Ben Swain comes over and is like, haha, you come on, we can all laugh off that bad interview. And then Jamie says, "Listen, man, I'm not pretending to hate you. I actually fucking hate you." And this is what I kind of feel with this. It's just like this thing, isn't it fun? We can kind of get around the table and we can talk about this stuff. Me and Neil Richmond's like, I don't like Neil Richmond.
No.
It's not a laugh for me. The stuff that he says is... he's part of a horrible system that I want to see destroyed.
Yeah,
you know?
like I don't think there's any reason to have like a profound respect for Neil Richmond like there is with other characters. Like, you know, you could say, oh, you know, a health minister did this or whatever, or like, you know, at least Micheál Martin opened schools and banned smoking or whatever. But all Neil does is like just be like, oh, those of us on Brexit Twitter will know like about this. It's like, man, other things are happening other than Brexit, like, you know.
Well, not to mention Brexit is the most like, you know, to borrow the phrase from the Americans, the most busy box bullshit ever, you know, where it's like it's on autopilot because it's Europe and it's the UK. If you think that Ireland swayed in any way, because like I've heard people say about Neil Richmond, oh, he's good at Brexit. It's like, yeah, I know a lot about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's like, whatever, who gives a shit? You know, it's like... Yeah,
the idea that we'd like skilled negotiators in the room, Brexit, like, it was used for Coveney. I know you did an episode on that, but like there aren't records on what Coveney did in particular that was brilliant for us in Brexit. Like, we're still getting fucked by it, like, so it's...
like... It is funny how that happens as well, where they're going, look how much, like, it's like, the weird dissonance that it must take to look over at the UK and seeing it collapsing, and then also it's kind of like a tidal wave that's just about to break on your shores. It's like, isn't that funny that that's happening over there? It's like,
and like, you know, it's the weird, like, loyalism we have to loyalty that we have to the EU, when people are like, haha, fuel shortages in the UK, and it's like, okay, we're being pressured to pass CETA, which will mean we will get sued for trying to reduce rent. Like, that's not exactly a fucking great thing either. Like, like they're just gonna laugh at us for that. Like,
like, I don't know how it's going to play out. It seems like something that's just happened, and now we're kind of, you know, for ages and ages, it was like with Brexit, they were like speculating, what's going to happen? What'll it be like if this deal happens? What'll it be like if a no deal happens? Like, nobody knew, and they were just talking about the negotiations. And like, my favorite thing I always go back to is when at the time I was like, I typed in Irish politics podcast into Google, and I was just listening to the first few that came up. So for a while there, I was listening to the Irish Times podcast, because I was like, oh, whatever, you know, they're like inside politics, you know, it's fine. And I was like, you know, stroking my chin in 2018, just, oh, interesting. And I could tell that Pat Leahy was a bit of a dunce. But like, when I gave up on the podcast is when he said that something that Theresa May did at the end, like, as we were approaching Christmas 2018, he said something that Theresa May did was the most audacious thing he had ever seen in his political career, as a political journalist. And then about 2 weeks later, he was like, actually, I don't think she knows what she's doing at all. And it was like, reached that conclusion like in 2018. It's like anybody could have had this insight before. And like now, the amount that Theresa May comes up and people talk about her, the effect that she had, so completely negligible. It was always inevitable it was going towards Boris Johnson. But like the whole thing with Brexit is that it's completely speculative until it happened. And now that it's happened, it's like, oh fuck, we have fuel shortages. Oh fuck, we have this. Fuck, this is happening. It's like COVID basically. It's like we don't know
for me
the effects of it.
To bring it to the news, as I believe we're meant to talk about, it's a bit like the data centers just being like, we have all the clear facts on like having a terrible energy infrastructure. Data centers just being big grey buildings that don't attract many jobs. Like even in like the optimistic reports from like 2019, I think, before 2020 anyway, from government, it's like, oh yeah, we'll get like 1,800 jobs from these. And the data center stuff at the moment is blowing my mind. Like the Green Party is meant to be for ecological balance, just transition and all that. And we're getting like, oh, actually, it could be tight this winter. The phrase Eamon Ryan used was tight. It's like, you never want that to be the phrase with your energy grid, someone made a joke on Twitter, I'll say to cover my ass, about the data centers basically turning people into Ted Kaczynski, and like it's true. Like they're just going to be this big grey ugly oak that is causing blackouts, it's like and people are eventually going to say, God, I know fucking no one who works in the data center, but at that stage they'll be there and it'll be too late. And down the road from me, there's like a company, well, they're advertising it online, but for down the road, just like they're like 2 data center sites. And it's like, it's in just like a quiet, unassuming business park where I think everyone here has done the ritual of like handing out CVs and whatever. But like, no one here is even aware that there's a sale for data centers going on. And then up the road in Whitegate, we've had a power plant out for a year. It's like our energy grid sucks, and all we're doing is saying, and that will get to the character of a Michael, main character Dowling, but like you're opposing business if you oppose data centers. It's like, no, like we already have them. There can be a bit of creative thinking with these, Microsoft trialed ones pretty successfully. Now they were small, but like that were underwater to like stop them overheating. It's like it doesn't have to be just like here now because we keep saying we're the best little country.
But it's all for the money, obviously, isn't it? Because, like, I don't know if it was you who was posted in this or was somebody else where they were like, why can't they just be up in like the North Pole or something? Where it's fucking like actually cold, and it's like the only reason is because of like the money and the incentive that there is for the tech companies. To
they need electricity, is why the North Pole suggestion is like foiled again. But they need relatively like earthquake free zones. So that's why we're like really attractive for them. As with many other things. But the fact that we're attractive for them for that, it's not so much the corporate tax as people like want it to be, because that's all we can bloody talk about. But like they're going to kill our power grid by all estimates. And like there's no like both sidesing that.
Yeah.
It's like they're basically an extra SD card for companies.
Yeah.
And it's not like I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, you know, I'll do my part. I'll delete all the photos I have on the cloud. It's like, no, it's not that, you know? They're just being used for this really wasteful internet and other things.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, I suppose that's another thing is because you have the physical infrastructure of the internet that needs for it to be facilitated.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the way that the internet is done in, I'm just going to say dumb words, you know, in a software way or whatever, something that's in more of an abstract sense. It's like there's ways that you could be managing that to prevent the physical infrastructure from being as fucked up as it is.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I think the defense of data centers is just coming from pure market brain of being like, well, that's how it's going to work, you know? But like when you have these giants like Facebook and Twitter and whoever, is Twitter still a giant? I don't know. But
not sure. Yeah.
Like that they're telling you what they need and you're going, okay, the market is somehow going to fix this you know, this effective monopoly. It's annoying. Like,
hasn't done it before, so why would it start now?
Yeah, it's like, you know, we're very much dealing with the reality of our power system here. And because we're so afraid to say anything against businesses, at least, you know, those in government we're going, no, it'll be fine. Yeah. Sure, they've always been good to us. I was reading a Guardian article on, I know, my secret shame on the data centers, just like to see what kind of reporting was being done in Europe before this big debate started. And the example they were using was that like Despacito was streamed 5 billion times in a year, and that used the equivalent energy of like, I think it was keeping Detroit or some state or city even running. And it's like, you know, it's the design of the internet to just keep doing all this crap. And like, you know, like torrenting used way less internet than all this streaming. But like, you know, no one's going to return to that because it's not profitable. But yeah, like I've seen it from the kind of the weird anarchist heads who love popping up on Twitter being like, oh, well, you know, if you're against data centers, what are you going to propose? Aren't they kind of like inevitable? And because this is how the internet works. And you're like, no, it's all design, and it is going to lead to, as I was mocking Dowling for, like families tanking data centers in winter, like while they have a cold tin of beans.
You were talking about the Guardian's coverage of it. I just found this, I was kind of like, just like trolling through the journal to like pull up some like articles and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like at least 50% of them are written by the Press Association. But so that's my guess. Every time I'm reading it, I was like, let me see if I can guess who wrote this, the Press Association or some journalist. So this time I had Press Association. I was like, I'm convinced this is the Press Association. No, it was a journalist. I was like, fuck, but it was like, so a major report from AirGrid says Ireland may have electricity shortages over the next 5 winters. Okay. Yeah. So the first paragraph that I found interesting was Ireland could face electricity shortages over the next 5 winters because of rising demand and the closure of older power plants, a new report has warned. And it was just annoying me. It was like, there seems to be this emphasis to be like, oh, there's a rising demand, but also it's because we're closing down power plants, you know?
Yeah.
And this is what they want. They wanted to close down the power plants. They want to get rid of all these things. And this is the result. You're not going to have electricity. And of course, like the main character in the article is Eamon Ryan just blubbering and kind of going like, oh, blah, 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 we have to do something. And maybe we'll keep the coal plant up. And I don't know. We're not sure. But, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you just have this thing where it's like, it's always being lumped on him, which is like the data center centres goes hand in hand with Gael and Fianna Fail. Well, more Gael.
Yeah, no, he's just kind of
like
going along like
like
he just wants his photo with the cycle lane. But like, the whole thing it kind of baffled me, to be honest, that like it's literally every bad thing. Like, we're already not meeting our emissions targets.
Yeah.
Like, our energy system is already pretty poor. And like, it's not adding a lot of jobs at a time when land is really valuable.
Yeah.
Because we have a housing crisis. And it's like, it's like, surely any one of those things would get you, against it. Like, but it is just this thing, like with the co-living, that it's like, if you're against it, well, you're just ideological.
Yeah.
And
or racist.
Yeah. I was so glad. So yeah, I don't know if like the listeners are like permanently on Twitter or not, but
well, we should record it for posterity anyway. But like, one of the things that I'm most interested in with your kind of Twitter stuff is your cataloging of like these fucking freaks,
Yeah,
so there's Adrian Cummins, obviously, but that is a different story. But like, I'm putting them in the same milieu, as it were. And even to a lesser extent, the White Moose Cafe guy, but then your man Dowling, he's kind of included in all of this, which is like this,
this general
suit wearing, sensible,
But like, I mean, the White Moose fella, I enjoy, like, I'm told he's done lectures on it, but
really?
It's like this idea of outrage marketing.
Really?
Yeah, but like,
Fucker.
People go like, oh, you're giving him what he wants, and you're like, no, what he wants is money. And he's not getting it from like people in America and Canada going, God, I love this place that I'm never going to visit, Like, like, he's not making money on the online outrage. It's a nice, you assume he does, but then you look at it and you're like, man runs a cafe, like.
Yeah. And also where the cafe is, I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but it's not like it's in Phibsborough or something.
No.
It's like out of Phibsborough. It's next to a bunch of residential houses. The people who are going there, used to be in... I think he's also fighting a losing battle because there's a massive college like around the corner from which he could be getting a bunch of patronage from, but he kind of scorns young people and all this. And so
it's like, there is like... there is always market for outrage, but that doesn't mean like the response is to just rely on it. Like, a fucking quarter of his menu is dedicated to like call outs. It's like, breastfeeding mothers. No. Like, we don't serve alcohol free or caffeine free drinks because we feel life is worth living. And you're like, all right, man, guess I'll just fucking drive home absolutely plastered then, like, like...
It's kind of like the whole, an extension of the whole spoofer culture as well, where you have... I was thinking about that Joe.ie, where they were kind of fucked up their stats to make them look like they were getting loads of interest. And then what was the thing was that basically the site is like... I think it's still going, the Maximum Media stuff, but they're almost like content aggregators as opposed to making anything. Because they were involved in... God, what happened to it? But anyway, RTE was going to buy it for like $1 million at some point, but it's like Ireland's love of like spoofers. People who aren't producing anything, aren't generating anything, and it kind of comes from that stuff of like, well, you're talking about them, it's like... Yeah, again, like you say, it's not generating money, it's pointless. It's kind of like, I don't know how much you need to run this cafe, and I don't know whether he owns the building that the cafe and the hotel are in, but,
Like, people over-police I think, yeah, it comes from kind of like the idea of, oh, well, your dollar is like a vote, that it's kind of like your tweet is like a vote. It's like there is a limit on how much you're actually funneling business to the man. Like, I highly doubt any of the however many hundreds or thousands like were looking at me log in the comment section of that post are going, okay, I'm going to go and buy a coffee from him now. Own the libs.
Yeah,
like, he isn't, as far as I know anyway, he isn't doing anything like the coffee brands in the States that are like, buy us because we support military or whatever, and like go on about the libs and all that. It's like he is running a cafe. And
well, I think they try to do that and they want to emulate that, but I don't know if the culture there is like, because like, I mean, this is also a stupid example, but I remember like seeing, I went back in the day when I watched The Nostalgia Critic as a young boy, there was the first time I'd seen a button that said donate underneath. And it was so baffling to me. And I was always interested in Patreon, and Patreon has been going for like a very long time. But people in Ireland are only really discovering it now because they can't wrap their heads around paying people for content a lot of the time. Like, there isn't massive Patreon pages like there is in the United States because I just don't think we're from that culture. But I think exactly as you say, it's like the US, it's like, I vote with my dollar. It's like, maybe if he sold t-shirts, he'd be making a bunch of money off of people in America. But
if he did have a podcast, like...
Yeah, if he had a podcast as well, he would have making sick money. But I think it's the irony of it is he's always given out about influencer culture, but as in they're vapid and they just want the attention. And it's like, well, that's obviously what you want because it's not translating into anything for, at least with the influencers, they're getting brand support and all this, like, what have you got? Although if you're saying he's going around pitching himself as like an outrage marketing kind of professional, then that is a way that he could be making money off of it.
Oh, but he's going to do that anyway,
Yeah.
Like, he's already had the reaction. There's only so many times you can beat that dead horse. Like,
but yeah, I was just saying that we brought him up because we were trying to talk about Dowling, and I'm determined to get back to him because I want to explain this argument about co-living being, if you're an opponent to co-living, that you're racist.
Yeah. So I think it was at the start of the summer, maybe, but that was just like one of his takes that like, so yeah, he's a professor of finance. We won't say where, I guess, I don't know. But he says things that sound right rather than like backing them up by literally anything. Like, I don't think he really shares articles that he's read or anything like that. He's just a guy who's like, the impression I'm getting from the ether is this. Yeah. And he posted that people who were opposed to co-living were leaning into racist rhetoric and using the far right idea of how's the Irish first. And it's like, first off, name literally anyone who has done that. And that was what I was doing to him. I was like replying to him like, hey man, just wondering, could you provide an example of this? Because I really haven't seen it as an opponent of co-living. And then
give me an example of one far right member who has come out against co-living and has cited exactly what you're saying as the reason why.
Yeah, but I don't even think there is like a far right thing against co-living. Like, his original take was like, and again, he's deleted all these, but people have some bits of it screenshotted. But it was like, he's saying now it's because it's a housing the Irish thing. But first he was saying it's because of attitudes in other countries where co-living is, they're more open to it, that we kind of look down on those cultures and implied it was like an Eastern Europe thing.
Right, yeah.
And I was just so baffled. I was like, honestly, I am in all these annoying circles you're telling me about, and I have never seen anyone use race at all. And then he just like stopped using Twitter for a bit. Now, like, I obviously didn't cause that personally, but a lot of people started calling him out. And
well, you can admit it here. You did, you know.
Yeah.
You did that.
The man lives in fear of me. But so yeah, Dowling logged off for a while, and there was a time over the summer co-living came up in the Dáil. No, not in the Dáil. It came up somewhere to do with housing. And I was actually like, do you know what? I'll look up what this Dowling character is saying about it now. I could do with a laugh. And I looked him up, and he'd suspended his account.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I actually first I was like, God, I hope the guy's okay. But I looked him up and he was still writing articles. So I was like, okay, he's still around. And but then he came back and put in his bio, professor, whatever, tweets deleted weekly. And it's like,
oh God, coward.
Yeah, but it's like how little self-confidence do you have to
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, I'm deleting everything weekly.
Yeah.
But so like I didn't follow him or anything. It was like whenever someone else goes for a dunk, or like people try and like earnestly respond to him, and I'm like, this man is such a lemon. Like, I don't know why you are treating him with sincerity. So yeah, he posted the Soc Dems are populist.
Yeah, that one kind of got me because I had like, finish that. Give us the tweet. This is beautiful tweet.
His first thing was like, we have the same people as last summer who opposed co-living, now opposing data centers. How can we, have a country led by these people who don't take into account all the information? And then following that up, he was like, the Soc Dems are a populist party demanding a moratorium on data centers so that we wouldn't have any. And it's like, no, that's not. No one's saying dig up the data centers we have. But like that,
no one's saying that. That's the exact opposite that's being said in every media source out there.
And like that's the thing. It's like that's not even what the Soc Dems, or like really it's PvP, are putting in, that we stop building further ones until we can accommodate them, or preferably not build them. But like there should be a priority that someone's cooker goes on. Yeah. And so yeah, like people were like trying to honestly reply to that, and take down. I think people see professor in a bio and they're like, oh, this is someone worth dunking on. And it's like, like the man clearly got there and stopped caring. So yeah, I just did like a stupid tweet of like,
or I think the thing that I would think when I see that is obviously like you go, oh, how did somebody get there? But then somebody would be. They would see that professor and they'd be like, how did somebody get there? They're teaching these people, where I was like, how did somebody get there? And I was like, oh, it's understandable. Like when you're a lecturer, like the type of guy he is, or, like that's the type of opinion that they respect. It's like, it's shared. It's not a unique thing to him. He's literally like, business is good, obviously. So we need people to be able to come in. The way they come in is by literally living in shoe boxes. Yeah. And do you oppose that? Well, then you are against workers who are coming in from overseas, ergo racist.
Yeah, it's like nobody is making this argument.
But the other thing one thing really quickly, actually, is I just want to bring up is that I mentioned on this podcast before, but one of Pascal Donoghue's former advisors made the exact same argument while he was serving as Pascal Donoghue's advisor. Yeah. He said, isn't co-living just another word for community or diversity? And are we against that? Are we against diversity? And you just kind of like, it's these, and I wanted to bring it up in relation to another article that we had, which is like I don't want to go too far. I want to focus back in on Dowling, but it's this
you like Dowling.
trend. I love Dowling, but it's just this thing where it's like, you have. I have it here, O'Gorman says a term birth mother is reductive and hurtful ahead of legislation debate about the mother and baby homes. And what it is this careful thing. I mean, I don't know if it's careful. I guess we get the backwash from the United States. It's like they do something and then eventually it has to come here. But it's this idea of doing these horrible, disgusting policies that hurt people, but then being like, oh, right, you're against co-living or data centers or, this wouldn't be me, I actually like people from other races. And the guy like O'Gorman who presided over this, the mother and baby homes, the whole fucking debacle there.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's be careful about the language that we're using. It's like, fucking hell. You're just like trying to pretend that, that's the only way you can suggest that you give a shit, because you clearly you don't care. You're not involved with anybody. And I don't know.
Yeah, like that report was leaked, which I mean, look, I'm not going to speak on behalf of survivors of the home, but I imagine that caused more upset reading it in the newspapers before getting the report than anything. But we're here imported culture war stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Meeting with groups, both sides. It's like, these terms are important.
Not to mention the housing for all, like taking what the thing, as in it's all like taking the language that we use and then packaging it back to us with their shit and just saying it's the same thing. This is what you wanted, isn't it? It's like, no, you know what I want. You're just obfuscating.
Such a disaster. It's incredible. I read it, bored me to tears, but it doesn't do what they say in their summaries of this many houses and it's X amount come from the market. It's like if you're relying on that, well then the developers are kind of gonna hold you hostage, like saying, well, we want this amount, this incentive, and prices will keep going up. And that's what every expert is saying on it. But we're just going, oh, no. Because the more business, the better. And that'll segue back into Michael, main character Dowling.
Yes.
And Thank you. He's there saying this is populism, which oh my God, populism gets overused.
Yeah. That was it. That was, again, sorry. It really wound me up when he used populism to describe the Soc Dems, because I'd listened to, on the weekend, I listened to a Tortoshak podcast, and they were talking about Catalonia, and not to lose track of it, but essentially he said he said at one point, Tony Groves is kind of like, no, I think, Catalonia, basically on Catalonian independence, good. But this guy is like the opposite. He says that nationalism is a distraction. I can't remember his name, okay? But either way, he then goes, otherwise we get populism, and that's the last thing we want. And then I was like, what do you mean? And then they were like, speaking of populism, and then they were like, is stuff that the Taoiseach has been referencing there recently about pandemic unemployment, or the
bonus?
The bonus. Yeah. He's like, and this is populist. I was like, I have to Google the word populist, and I was like, what does this mean? It means nothing. It means and then I was getting annoyed and frustrated. I had to stop listening to the podcast because I was like it doesn't. What does it mean? It was frustrating. Again, I was saying this before the podcast, where I just feel dumb all the time, where it's I don't know very basic rudimentary things, and then I Google them and it makes them harder to understand rather than clearer.
Yeah, I think what would ease your stress is realizing that most people don't understand rudimentary things either. Again, with populism, opposing data centers being built is just it's not populism by any stretch other than Michael Dowling's imagination.
Well, that's what I meant. I felt particularly triggered reading that. So that's what kind of got me engaged in your man Dowling. I was like, like the stuff before, it's like, you know, where he's like, co-living, you don't like it? You're a racist. I was like, yeah, it's been done. I've read fucking Ed Brophy. You're just some simpleton. And then when he's like, this is, the Soc Dems are populist. It's like, motherfucker, I just suddenly like, I gotta like get involved in this, because like populism is usually reserved for, like, they call Sinn Féin populist, or they call Donald Trump a populist, or they call Jeremy Corbyn, like all of these people are populists because I think people probably take the first part of that word popular and they're like, yeah, the things that people like, they advocate for them, but they are bad people. They're the people I don't like, so that means that they're populist. You know?
It's like there is no matter what side of the political spectrum or whatever you're on, for you there is good and bad populism. Like it's not an inherently negative thing. You know, it's like, I don't know, like having a slogan, you know, if someone's sloganeering, it's like, no matter where you are, that's a thing. But yeah, this whole idea of like describing people as populist, it's doing my nut in. It's completely unnecessary. Like you can call someone silly for opposing data centers if that's what you believe. It's not populism. They're not pitting the data centers versus the people or whatever. Like, like you'd really have to strain populism to say it's populism to be against them. Like, you know? Yeah, I think with Dowling, what kind of needs to be stressed to people who are probably removed from the financial world is that, like, a financial professor and an economics professor are like way different. There's no need for Dowling to actually understand what populism is. He can just see that word and go like, oh yeah, I'll run with it. But yeah, so yeah, back to him. You know, I quote tweet with a silly little tweet about, like, you know, pretending my family are having dinner together and thanking data centers while we've cold dinner in the dark. And he goes like, oh, did you send this tweet by pigeon? And then I was like, oh, this Egypt actually replied to me. So I was just like, hey, what? While I have you, you know, I see you mentioned co-living here, and you said people opposed to it used racist rhetoric. You know, have you found anyone who said this, or are you just saying things that sound right? And then he did this like weird, like, it's the kind of thing that like threw me off secondary school's debating, is like, I have to stick with this point. It was like, oh yeah, racism rarely comes from words, but more actions. And then he realized how stupid that was and blocked me. And like, but yeah, I didn't expect other people to like make him the main character for the day based on that. But it was kind of funny, like, you know, just to realize how awful that is. It's like, is he implying I'm racist if I'm against co-living then? The kind of the centrist brain that comes out. And it is like, you know, I think we'll use like conservative for Fine Gael, but like I think progressive centre kind of suits them, but it's like, it's progressing to a center that cannot hold. Like this, just build the data centers. Like one of my council reps was like, oh, you know, we've some companies here that are world leaders in building data centers, and it's like, yeah, but they're not world leaders in keeping the power grid going, are they? Like,
like,
well,
Yeah, that's actually there was another thing that because I was like, again, going through, I was like, okay, well, get a broad thing of what's happening in the week. And I remember that people were showing off about Ireland named best country for response to pandemic in Bloomberg monthly resilience ranking. And you don't really need, first of all, it's Bloomberg, so you just take that, like immediately it just discounts it. But the word resilience, like this, achievement in the field of excellence.
Yeah,
did
it's you look into how they did the rankings?
No, I mean, I don't even know how you would get a metric for that.
That's the thing. It's one of those things where it's like, how do you measure quality of life?
Yeah.
And, you hear talks of like, because a lot of economics, well, not the science of it, but the kind of discussing of it is like coming up with a nice ratio to rank policies by. And in Ireland, we love fucking any metric that uses GDP because our GDP doesn't really represent what's going on.
Yeah.
Like GDP is a measure from over 50 years ago. And like, this is an overused talking point, but it's a measure from post-war economies that it was good for measuring those, not so good for measuring modern economies, but ours is just incredibly inflated compared to what we actually see in front of us. So conveniently, the Bloomberg analysis, it used our GDP as part of its scoring. And it also had like a percentage of those who died or were hospitalized, I forget which one, from the COVID cases. And it was like, if that was pretty low, you're doing well. But, it's like, what about the countries that had no COVID cases? Or like, if you look at mainland China, like the way they did the stats for that to kind of skew it is pretty funny. But, and then there was also like the first column when you click on how they did the rankings was lockdown severity on a scale of 0 to 100. And they gave us a 44. And I couldn't find, it's probably there, but like I couldn't find why we were a 44 and other countries were higher or lower, or like,
like
what
I'm kind of
that
having
meant.
Like, it doesn't mean anything as well. I mean, like, the whole thing with lockdown, I guess, like, looking at it, it's like, this virus happens, fuck, we need to do something. What we do, we lock down everything. All right, we locked down everything. That's pretty much what we did, and we were inside for a while, and then we opened up, because of one man's vanity. We opened up for the summer, and then we've been in this situation since where it's like, we have like, I don't know what we have, levels or tiers or numbers or systems, there was always like, these are open, but these are not. And these are open for this hour, but only under these conditions. And then this happens. And it's just like, lockdown ceased to mean anything once we opened up the first time. So this metric that you have, it just, I don't know how you could possibly account for it, because it wouldn't, like, there's too many variables.
And especially if you're going month by month, and like, it's the thing with loads of things. Like, again, economics, a lot of discussing it is like comparing ratios, and it's like lockdown severity by numbers. It's inherently silly, like, and a lot of other metrics are like, again, GDP is silly for what's really going on, but these ratios like help us compare a little bit. But like, another thing that skewed that was just like that we had a high vaccine uptake, which we have, like, fair play to us. I've kind of seen it implied that like we got that because of Pascal Donahue's like great financing or whatever. But like that fed into our lockdown resilience. But things like the absolute catastrophe that was our contact tracing didn't.
Yeah.
And like the amount of money we just sank into things.
Yeah,
like you'll hear Norma Foley go on about like the amount of money that's been sank into schools, and like just throwing money at overpriced things doesn't really change anything. It can make GDP nice, but all we're hearing from different departments is like how much money has been allocated to things. Especially with I've seen, I think it's just today it started, but they're like, no, it was yesterday. It's like teachers are demanding to be part of the pandemic rewards. Yeah. And it's like all the discussion around this it's bonkers. Like,
that's really pissed me off, because that was actually something I wanted to bring up too, because like last week we were kind of joking. Because it was like, oh, it's on Twitter, this is funny, Fine Gael putting out tweets, how do you want to commemorate the pandemic? And then every single time, how do you want to commemorate the pandemic? Do you want to commemorate it with a concert or once off payment, cash pay or whatever, not necessarily cash payment to frontline workers? Or do you want to have a day off, or a once-off payment to like it's just like this kind of.
And of course, Adrian Cummins said, "I want it to be a €500 voucher for restaurants."
Well, we were joking about like for some reason, the thing that came straight into my head was in the episode of Peep Show where Jeremy's aunt dies and then they're taking the money to buy a Corfu property. And he says, it's like, well, we thought we'd give you a bit of money for a night out and a new pair of jeans, something like that. Like it's that type of thing where they're talking about like, how do we, treat our frontline workers after, all this that they put in?
What's this one-off reward rather than recognizing how much we failed and improving?
I know, it's like, we made through this by the skin of our fucking teeth.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're here going, way to go, lads. And it's like, you're acting like this couldn't happen again. Do you know what it's done is it just revealed how fucked everything is. But like, for last week, it was funny because it was a bunch of Fine Gael tweets. This week, it's not funny to me because it felt like that was like the trying out of a tactic of just repeating the once-off payment, the bank holiday. Yeah. And now it's like, it's almost like in the media, it's like, well, maybe we can have the bank holiday and the once-off payment. It's like, why are you talking like that? Why are you talking about this? It was like, it's just this weird thing where they've managed to set the parameters of the discussion to be like, what type of once-off payment should we have? It's like, we should have a once-off payment. We should have like a genuine increase in people's wages so that they can live here and they can exist, And I was saying, somehow they managed to do something worse than the Tories, like 1% increase to NHS workers for staff pay. It was like, that's ludicrous. It's like, it's just, they're so fucking stingy. But like, they're stingy in like the weird ways. Like, because you even just mentioned there with Norma Foley, it's like, let's just throw all the money at the schools, or let's buy a bunch of ventilators that don't fucking work, Yeah. But like, it's always that.
One thing... Yeah. With like Norma that we haven't chased up is the fiend who did the calculated grades for last year.
Oh yeah.
It's like he's just made off with a load of money. I looked him up and I could find like one presentation he gave to an Irish education institute, but he's not based in Ireland. And like, it's things like that. Like, we're demonizing like people on the PUP, like, Adrian Cummins saying, well, people should have to present in Ireland or whatever. It's like, what are we doing about these scallywags like that are taking massive money for PPE We had an accredited grade system that was a disaster. Like, you know, there are other people to look at. Like, but yeah,
none of that factored into our resilience report. Clearly, you know. I mean, it's wild because like we were joking about like they were like, oh, we'll spend it on a party. We'll head to Ibiza. It'll be a great crack. And then Adrian Cummins comes out and goes, maybe we should make it so the money can only go to me. And it's like, good Lord.
No, it was
being
crazy.
platformed.
I don't know if you heard him on the Saturday RTE radio show.
No,
Paul
I missed
Murphy
that.
was on it as well. But like, you know, he was there going, people should have to show up to the social welfare office. I don't know why people are opposed to this. It's like, I mean, it's just unnecessary. Like, and there's this implication here that people are fleeing the country with PUP, which there's absolutely no evidence of. And, you know, there was a moment Paul asked him, well, I assume, Adrian, you know, you won't be refusing all of the grants and subsidies to the industry from the government. And Adrian was like, well, no, of course not. Like, we've been hit hard, you know? And it's like,
yeah. I mean, it's crazy as well because, like, you know, the other thing that people have kind of memory hold is when they did have guards at the airports to make sure that nobody was going away with the PUP or with their payments and their benefits and all this type of shit. It's like, this is something that and ever since they had the PUP here, they're like, do not get used to this. We are taking this away as soon as we fucking can.
Yeah.
And there's so many restaurants now. There's a few people I've seen where the penny is sort of dropping, where it's like, I'm now thinking that there are so many people who aren't working that maybe the PUP isn't the issue. There's like literally articles coming out of like restaurant owners suddenly going like, it could be that like the section of workers that we relied so heavily on are now deciding like, actually, maybe I don't want to live in this fucking place, you know? And like this has been... Like, I don't know. There's a number of contributing factors which aren't necessarily the PUP. And even if it was the PUP, it's like good. Like the way I was thinking about like going around like looking for jobs when I was young. Like one time I went in for a job interview and I think like, you know, they'd just be looking for any reason to like turn you away or something.
Yeah,
you know? Like they'd be asking you, there'd be questions like, God, what was it? Like if I asked like how much am I going to be earning here, it's like, well, that's a very impertinent question, isn't it? You know? Like, or like I don't know, it's just this weird thing where it's like the way I understand it, the way that this whole thing that we live in is supposed to work is sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. But then these guys start to go down and they're like, no, that's not how this works. I don't go down. You go down. So we need to figure out a way to get the government to force you to do things, you know, to go back to work. Like the government has to intervene to force you back to work rather than for me to increase the wages or make a more desirable place to work in or, you know, it's just a whole attitude. I think it's been startling. But yeah, no, that was God, you reminded me, and then I just forgot to say it at all. That's what I was going to say. Is that like this thing? We need to make sure that these people aren't living in other countries. And I was like, well, I've been on the dole now myself for about since the I think August or June in 2020. Okay. And so the first time that was like the height, it was kind of, we're getting into a height of the pandemic situation again, you know? So they were like, do not come in here to collect. Okay. And so they were putting it into my bank account. But since I moved to Kilkenny, then they were like, no, now you have to start showing up. I don't know what it's like for other people, but ultimately like I've been signing on like physically.
Yeah.
You know, I have to go in there and sign the thing and then they give you the money. And also they give it to you in cash, which is kind of baffling to me. It seems like maybe like we have set up a system and you've revealed that it is possible to just put it into my bank account. Even if you want me to come in and sign on, can it just go directly into my account? Because I have to then walk to another machine and put it into a machine and be like, here. It's stupid. It's unnecessary, but whatever. I don't care. But also I'm saying like how many people does he think are able to do that, like able to live in a different country and collect the dole? It's like you need to be present. Like that's what I've seen, you know.
I don't know. He just kind of, he's just stirring up a sentiment for workers that most people actually kind of feel sympathy for. Like, I think most people in Ireland want to be nice to servers and don't like the idea of them not being paid very well. Like, I think we've all been there, I guess, is something we do, like, you know. Like, I don't think there's actual appetite for this whole, like, well, why aren't people going into the restaurant industry that, like, he's trying to create. Like, I think it's literally just people with columns, like, saying this. You know, like, we I do some stalls in town on housing and stuff and all that, and, like, we're across from the robot trees a lot of the time when we do them. And, like, people are more pissed off about those than they are someone sitting on the dole, like, you know?
It's funny. The other thing about it as well, I was just thinking, is, like, last year they opened up, everybody started to get jobs in restaurants, then they had to close down again because the government fucked up. So they're saying, oh no, nobody's coming back to work this time, and it's like, because they got fucking burnt before. It's like, I need the security. I don't want to go off the PUP if I have to just immediately go back on it. Or, like, maybe, like, I mean, you don't want to get COVID. At that time it was like, there's people who didn't want to go in and risk getting COVID, and it's like, that's actually understandable. But, like, I do find that context is missing, where it's by, why is this a problem now when it wasn't a problem back then? And I think that also there's variables which people aren't entertaining because they think it's as simple as these people are lazy and they're sitting at home and they're watching their fucking box sets and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's it's tedious, it's lazy analysis is what it is. It's like, you're not interested in solving this, you're only interested in punishing people because, you know, I guess you finally felt the burn of something, you know? And now you're like, I didn't like this. How come they're not suffering as well, you know?
Like, I think everyone has stories of absolutely shit work, shit wages, shit shifts in the retail, or not retail. Well, retail too. I don't personally have retail, but in the restaurant industry. And like, I won't say where. I worked in a place, you know, did 12-hour plus shifts, didn't like it. And when I was applying for jobs again, I was like, hey, do you know what? I will take anything else as long as I can. And I worked in basically dealing with rotten fruit and veg all day, but it was fine because people left me alone. I could stick in my headphones, and you know, there was just, you know, like, work people look down on this, like, you know, all the talk of, like, the litter and stuff, like the South William Street people being like, oh my God, cans and bottles. It's like, fucking hell, like, hire more bin men. Like, it's maybe I'm different in that position, but honestly, getting rid of rubbish is actually, it's kind of not the worst job. And, you know, maybe other people did that and now want to go in the restaurant industry, or the opposite of me, but, like, like, I think everyone has shit stories of the restaurant industry, and especially during COVID, I can imagine, like, it got much worse. Like, we're there seeing your man from Alfie's, the fucking,
of course,
the Hellman's mayonnaise bucket of coins, and there are just so many stories of, like, oh, I'd actually rather try something else, work in a factory, work with rubbish, work whatever. And it's not a case of, like, well, actually we need to hold people hostage with welfare payments so that they come back.
And there's always this threat of jobs, like, we're going to create these jobs in the data centers and they're going to be great, but, like, what you're saying there, it's like, if there's real problems that people are having, like with litter, or or like with the data centers, where it's like we need to create jobs, so we need to create this kind of polluting kind of thing. It's like, what about you just create jobs that do the opposit of that serve some sort of public good? You don't need to create them just to create them.
Like,
and we fucking kill ourselves.
I'm involved in the Scam Bridge campaign. I don't know if you've seen it, but we'll be doing a lot more on it soon, launching properly. But this idea of just like jobs to fill up, space. Like a company can take on 10 people under a government scheme and not pay them at all. And the person who's doing the work is getting paid less than minimum wage. Yeah. And we're paying the companies essentially, we're covering the labor cost of 79 and a bit thousand if they take in 10 workers.
Right, yeah. And like,
we're just going, it's jobs, stimulating the economy, whatever. And it's like, it's not, I think one of my main takeaways from all the Adrian Cummins media is like, maybe we just have too many restaurants, Yeah.
That was it.
Like, I love Cork. I love all the pubs we have. I love all the cute little cafes and restaurants. Not that I get to spend a lot of time in them, but like, maybe it's just not a great industry to keep pumping money into, we're going to see smaller and smaller profit margins. And Adrian again was going on about like spending 30k to get a kitchen porter in. And it's like, that's actually kind of good, because the kitchen porter is a pretty miserable job, Yeah. Like it's hard work.
That's the thing I don't like. The argument always seems to be from him and his ilk is, but you don't understand. I'll fail. It's like, that's the thing you do. That's the thing you take on.
It's like, if you believe in the market, that's it. Like,
So, where can people find you if you want to be found?
I tend to avoid being found, but if for whatever reason they enjoyed my ramblings, I'm Annibynonsense on Twitter.
Brilliant. I'll do a whole Patreon spiel later. I'll record that separately. I won't subject you to that, but I will subject you to it. Patreon.com/Celtic Ligers. Go there and throw us a few coins. €2 gets you a funny thank you at the end of an episode, along with bonus cut for time content, which is just musings that didn't feel like they were relevant to the conversation sometimes, or if it was just going on too long. So check those out. And what does €5 get you? Well, all the perks of €2, but also access to the back catalogue of bonus episodes that we've recorded thus far. We're taking a break from the bonus episodes for a while. These are like full beefy 1 hour Liger content. So you can listen to those at a $5. And if you want to give us €11, thank you very much. So for the patron thank yous today, I have a big old box of fortune cookies here, and I'm just going to crack some of them open and start reading them. All right. So first up, we have a beloved new patron. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Sean Tack. And Sean Tack, crack... rhymed there, didn't mean to. Nothing astonishes men so much as common sense and plain dealing. Take that with you wherever you go. Should come in handy. Now, Ben, let's see what your fortune says. The greatest risk is not taking one. There you go, Ben. Zainab Lotfi, as a thank you, here is your fortune. You can make your own happiness. That's pretty useless. Sean Donnelly, here you come with your fortune cookie. I'm playing you, and I'm going to crack it open. Crack. It's better to be alone sometimes. Yeah, whatever that's worth to you. Kevin Larney, what's your fortune, you say? Well, you will become great if you believe in yourself. Also not true. Some of these aren't true. Podcast Naharan, cracking open your fortune cookie now. What does it say? It's better to be alone sometimes. That sounds very similar to the other one. But good advice, just everybody be alone. That's what I say. It's not advice, it's your fortune. So you have to be alone. That's you're going to be alone. That's what's going to happen in your future. Mickey Finn, let's see what your fortune cookie says. The man on the top of the mountain did not fall there. Makes you think. Now, Benson. Thank you, Benson. And your fortune. Love can last a lifetime if you want it to. So stick in there. Obviously, I hope you join the campaign against divorce that we've started. We have to make that shit illegal again, basically. It's a travesty. Thousands of families are torn apart every day because of divorce. Francis Breen. A very attractive person has a message for you. I think I know who they are. Simon Akers. It is now and in this world that we must live. That should be obvious to mostly anybody. I don't know where they're... I feel like that's completely involuntary. Up next, Mark Stokes. Mark Stokes, what's your fortune? It's amazing how much good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. Yeah. Mark works in animation with me, so we can both attest to that. It's amazing how much money you can make for somebody if you don't get the credit. Huh? Am I right, Mark? He's agreeing with me. Up next, Mark Maloney. You cannot love life until you live the life you love. That was very hard to say, so I hope it was very profound to hear. Blahin de Burka. Crack. Be on the lookout for coming events. They cast their shadows beforehand. Oh. Okay. Excuse me. It's COVID. Alan Carroll. If you have something good in your life, don't let it go. Okay, so don't do that, Alan. Stephen Bradley. Adversity is the parent of virtue. So, what? Up next, we have Richard Zimmerman. And Richard, a new voyage will fill your life with untold memories. I hope it's good. A new voyage. Going on a ship sometime, eh? Are you? Now, let's see. Bridget Purcell. Your ability for accomplishment will follow with success. So, let's say congratulations to the newest member of An Dáil Éireann, Bridget Purcell, TBD. Okay? So she's TBD. Milky Fox. Now this one's in all caps for some reason, so imagine I'm yelling it. Life consists not in holding good cards, but in playing those you hold well. Something to do with poker. Goes over my head. Know nothing about gambling. That's why I don't understand any card metaphors. Kyle O'Neill. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? No, is the answer. Connor Barry. Our deeds determine us as much as we determine our deeds. Not even trying with that one. That's just fucking... I always hate that format. It would really piss me off in The Departed one time when like Jack Nicholson is like, I don't want to be a product of my society. I want my society to be a product of me. And it's just like, I hate the fucking... Do you know what I mean? Just, here's a sentence, but then here is it, but with the nouns kind of switched around. Anyhow, up next, Liam McCartan. You must try or hate yourself for not trying. Good advice. So, hope you don't hate yourself, Liam. Up next, Claire O'Neilan cracking open that fucking fortune cookie. A short stranger will soon enter your life with blessings to share. That's interesting. Very specific. So keep your eye out for somebody you don't know who is very short. And if you see somebody like following that description in the street, just fucking assault them, grab them, figure out what's my treat? What's my treat? And you're shaking them. Ronan Carey. A stranger is a friend you have not spoken to yet. I hate that one, so I'm giving you another one. Sorry. You cannot love life. You are very talented in many ways. Very true. Niamh Kelly. If you have something good in your life, don't let it go. I feel like I already said that. You cannot love life. Yeah, I've said that. Yeah. Land is always on the mind of a flying bird. I tell you what, who land is also on the mind of fucking vulture funds. That's also a bird, really, I suppose. Fucking the government and how quickly those fat cats up in Washington, aka Dáil Éireann, can give said land to some fucking Canadian multinational. Can't say vulture fund these days. Political correctness gone mad. Paulie Doyle, you will conquer obstacles to achieve success. So, give me another one. Oh my God. If you feel you're right, stand firmly by your convictions. And let me tell you, Paulie's got a lot of convictions, alright? Paulie's so many convictions that he went to jail. Next up is Joe Joyce, and he's the last one, so let's give him a good one. You will become great if you believe in yourself. True. There is no greater pleasure than seeing your loved ones prosper. Wrong. Everyone agrees you are the best, and that's the absolute truth, Joe. That's 3 now you got, but the last one sums it up. You are the best a man can get. So, was that interesting? Who knows? Thank you very much for listening. Talk to y'all soon. Bye bye.